Hello, Vanakkam, and welcome to Sudarshan's podcast. I'm Sudarshan, the host. In this episode, we'll be talking about product marketing, and I have Sandeep from Adobe. Hey, Sandeep, welcome to the show.
Hey Sudarshan, how are you? Thanks for inviting me.
Great, Sandeep. Yeah. Me, Sandeep spoke like maybe 4 5 months back, Sandeep, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So to give a little context about Sandeep, he works as a principal product marketing manager from Adobe. Prior to this, he was working for Akamai Technologies and Samsung for a small stint. And also, he's a IIM Bangalore alumni. Yep. Glad to have you, Sandeep. Let's get in.
Likewise, good to be on the show and happy to answer your questions. I'll try to make it interactive and engaging as much as possible.
Yeah. Cool. So, okay, let's start with you, Sandeep. I just gave a very brief intro. Can you talk a little more about you?
Sure. I have been in the technology segment for a few years now. I think kind of clocking in on 15th year of my corporate career. So
Or he
yeah,
looks
I've
younger
been
than
in
me.
the Do I? Okay, that's a
Yeah.
compliment. I'll take that as a compliment. But yeah, I've been in this segment for close to 15 years now. I started my career with Samsung. I was part of their development, the Samsung Software Development Center. I'm forgetting the name of the company, but yeah, I was part of their. I started off as an engineer developer back in 2008. I used to be part of their Linux mobile team, developing software. I recall, I was part of their settings application. I used to be an application engineer for their Linux mobile division as part of the settings application. So yeah, I was in that group. We used to do a few projects. So Samsung was kickstarting their Galaxy platform back in those years. I was talking about 2008. Yeah, like so many years ago. So we used to do a few projects between Linux Mobile and the Galaxy projects. I was with Samsung from 2008 to 10. 2010 is when I went to IIM Bangalore, did my MBA there. Primarily marketing and strategy was my area of specialization. From 2012, I joined Akamai Technologies from campus. Used to be part of the North America sales team in Akamai. So Akamai is one of the CDN leaders. It's a delivery platform for folks in technology who probably understand CDN a little bit. It's the back end of internet infrastructure delivery. I used to specialize on the media and entertainment side. So online video streaming is what my segment of specialization was. So anyone like a Disney or a Hotstar or any of those players who kind of started in the D2C video streaming space used to be our customers. And
Still,
so that's
Akamai
the
is
thing.
their vendor.
I would tend to believe so. A lot of
Okay.
the streaming players would still use at least some CDN. If not Akamai, there has to be some kind of a
Yep.
delivery platform at the back end, which will eventually pick up the video and deliver it to the end user. So I started off there. I was with Akamai till 2015. 2015 is when I moved out for a very brief period. I used to be part of another company called Metric Stream. They specialize in the governance and regulatory space. They provide software or create software for the GRC. They used to call it governance, risk, and compliance, the GRC space. So I was with that company for 6 months, and then I started a gig of my own. So me, along with a couple of my friends, we started a company in the market insight space. We were building a platform for crowdsourcing market insights. So analytics and market insights is what the specialization was. So we ran that company for close to 2 years, couldn't really find good traction with it. So eventually went back in 2017. So 2017, I went back to Akamai again, and this was the start of my product marketing journey with Akamai. Again, the area of specialization continued to be media and entertainment, but moved from a sales role to a product marketing role. And that's where I joined. I continued my product marketing journey ever since. So I was with the product marketing team in Akamai from 2017 to 21. In 21, I moved to Adobe. I used to be so I started managing product marketing for a portfolio which was on the video advertising and video subscription space. So this was back in 21. So 21, almost last year, I was managing that particular portfolio. Currently, I manage the marketing or the product marketing specifically for their learning management solution. It's called the Adobe Learning Manager, which is in the e-learning space. So I've been in the product marketing space for close to what, 6, 7 years now, um, between different products and technologies, video streaming, subscription management, advertising, video tech, and now e-learning and learning management solutions. So yeah, pretty much in the tech world is what my specialization has been.
Yep, 6 7 years experience in product marketing. Cool. But in between, you said after your small stint of starting up, you switched to PMM from
Yes.
sales.
Yeah.
Yes. What happened? Like,
Yeah.
why did you made that switch? Why do you believe that that is your way ahead?
I would say product marketing was actually accidental. It wasn't a conscious decision that I wanted to get into product marketing, and there are a couple of reasons why that happened. One was I was moving out from the startup and going back into the corporate career, and there was a pretty exciting project in Akamai back then in 2017, and they had a PMM opening within that group, and I had at least some overlap on the industry segment side. So I worked with the product manager who was leading that particular product line, even in one of the past projects. So we had some familiarity there. So it was kind of an entry point back into Akamai. Product marketing was actually a little coincidental that the role was for product marketing. And as we talk about what exactly product marketing does, you'll realize that it's a pretty multifaceted function. Product marketers do a lot. It's somewhere between the go-to-market teams, the product teams, the engineering teams, the some of the other marketing functions as well. So it's really a pretty diverse function. Even the skill set kind of varies. So at one point of time, you might want to pick up a technical hat, work closely with the product manager and the engineering teams. At a different point of time, it could have a very different definition where you are probably leading a go-to-market project or launching a product where you will interface more with the sales team or creating a strategy on what product to launch, which geography to target, what kind of customers to target, so on and so forth. So we'll talk a lot about those maybe. But to answer your question, the product marketing role happened by accident, but I started liking that function a lot because it aligns a lot with my skill set of being a lot more analytical, tend to do a lot of research based activities. You tend to do a lot of analysis in terms of which segments to target, how to penetrate into certain markets, how to sell into certain segments, and things like that. So yeah, that's how it happened.
Awesome. Awesome. Right. In between, you said that product marketing will wear multiple hats and like interfere with, I mean, like collaborate with multiple teams. Also, yep. And we all know that is okay. In marketing, we have multiple different types, right? If you take there is content, there is demand gen, there is event marketing, stuff like that. How product marketing is something different from it, and how you work together.
Okay, yeah, I think let me start by explaining what marketing is, and then let me kind of come down to product marketing specifically. So if you look at marketing as a function, marketing would typically, as the word says, it's mostly related to how do you market something, either a product or a service or a brand. It could be anything. Yeah. Now, if you are, like I explained, if you are marketing a brand, you would be part of the brand marketing function. So many companies have a brand marketing team which will exclusively focus on how to talk about the brand. What does the brand stand for? What are the values your company or the organization stand for, and things like that. Then um, let's say you have to market a particular set of products or an entire business or a portfolio, and who do you market to, how do you market it to them. So that kind of falls, or that's the responsibility for the demand marketing in a way. So demand again can be broken down into few different flavors. So within demand marketing, you would typically have the event marketing, which is exclusively or more focused on generating demand from events as the primary channel. You would also have the usual online demand channels, so social media marketing, LinkedIn marketing, Facebook marketing, email campaigns. So all of that kind of sits within the demand marketing vertical. So that's another flavor. So all of this sits within demand marketing. Events would be one vertical, campaigns would be the second vertical. Many a time, social media marketing could be a third vertical. Many a times, it sits within the same group as well. So those would primarily be the three channels. So you would have
Sorry to
events.
interrupt. Yeah. So demand gen demand marketing is more of lead generating side of marketing, right? Even can be worked for brand and also demand, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it
Okay.
depends
Got it.
on the size of the company and the type of the organization. So if you are talking about large organizations, you would typically see brand marketing sitting in a different team and demand marketing sitting in a different team because hypothetically they do different functions. So brand awareness has does have an overlap with demand generation, but brand awareness is not just only about demand generation. It's more about creating thought leadership, awareness about the company at a branding level, at a logo level. That's a versus demand, which is like actually creating demand for a particular portfolio or a set of products or for one product, so on and so forth. Yeah. Within demand, as I said, you would have your event marketing, you would have the typical campaigns, PPC, emails, all of that. And then you would have the social channels, your LinkedIn, Twitter, depending on what product or what kind of service you're talking about. Some of these social media channels would exist. Yeah. So another form of marketing which exists is content marketing. Now, this is where it starts to becoming a little gray in terms of what is content marketing, what is product marketing, because you'll see a lot of, so when we talk about product marketing, you'll see typically there are a lot of misconceptions, at least specifically with content marketing, because in a lot of organizations, product marketing is considered to be a function which is responsible for creating the content, which is not really the case. Yeah, it's one of the responsibilities of product marketing that you have an influence on creating the content itself, but that's not the only responsibility for product marketing. Content marketing, on the other side, is specifically responsible for the generation of the content itself. Yeah, so someone has to write a blog, someone has to publish a white paper, a podcast, things like that will typically happen through the content marketing team. So these guys would specialize in creating the content, creating the podcast, creating whatever social content for LinkedIn or social content for Twitter and things like that. Product marketing, on the other hand, does a lot more. So when I talk about product marketing, I tend to believe that it's a more business critical function. So as I kind of mentioned a little bit in the beginning, in different instances, product marketing will put a different kind of hat. So if you're launching a product, you would be responsible for maintaining or managing everything related to the product launch. So right from how do you want to talk about the product, what the features are, who do you want to sell it to, how do you want to sell it to, what the pricing is, so on and so forth. Whereas competition, so what kind of competition exists out there in the market with respect to that particular product. So it could be managing product launches, launching products in the market, creating the positioning for the product, doing some competitive research or market analysis, enabling the sales team. So how do you sell that particular product? It's a new product. What are the features? How do you talk about that product with your customers and prospects? So all of that kind of happens in the realm of product marketing. The other point which I'll want to mention is when you look at product marketing as a function, depending on the type of organization or depending on the level of seniority, the nature of the role varies a little bit. For example, when initially I got into Akamai as a product marketing person, my role was primarily around execution. So my core responsibilities would be simple things like writing a blog or creating a sales presentation deck or creating a sales enablement deck, things like that. So I used to actually sit down and write a blog end to end. I used to sit down and create presentation decks end to end. Now, as a product marketeer, once you kind of start becoming a little more mature, you'll see your role kind of elevates a little bit from execution to more planning and of sorts. So then you start thinking about what are the set of activities which you would be doing over a period of time, and you start creating plans around it. You start working close. So let me take an example. So for example, let's say if you're as a product marketer responsible for managing a particular product launch. So a product launch typically within an organization works closely with the engineering team and with the product manager. So typically you would have a program structure around it. So there are 2 or 3 different phases of the program. So let's say if you're talking about a extremely or a entirely new product, the first stage would be to understand what is the scope for that particular product. What is the market size, what is the TAM, what is the SAM, things like that. Yeah, so the product marketing person is responsible for working on a lot of those things, identifying what is the ICP, what is the total addressable market, what is the opportunity size, and things like that. Then you work with the product team and with the engineering team to take it closer to the customer. You would probably be involved in a beta launch, that you give a free trial to a certain subset of customers, or you open it up for beta testing to a certain set of customers. So what is that MVP of the product? What is the bare minimum feature set which you'll want to launch for as a beta stage? Once you have done that, you take it one more level further. What is the GA of the product? What are the first set of features which you want to launch in the market, so on and so forth. So you'll see during all these stages, there is a lot of
GA
planning,
as in
so general
GA.
availability of the product.
Okay. Mm.
So typically products in the technology world is launched in different phases. You would have a smaller limited availability for a smaller subset of customers, and then there would be a beta release, an alpha release, beta release, and then eventually you get to a general availability where you launch the product either in a particular region or globally across the world. That's where the planning stage comes in. So as you become a little more mature, you get to a phase where you are involved in a lot more of the planning level activity. And then eventually, for example, right now as a principal PMM, I would also be responsible for a lot of the strategy planning. An example could be, so last year I was working on a product line which was for the media and entertainment vertical, but we wanted to figure out whether the same product could be sold to an entirely different vertical or not. So we wanted to target the banking and financial sector for that same product. So essentially, what that means is we'll have to first of all understand whether there is a demand or not. If there is a demand, what kind of people or what kind of organizations would be interested in the requirement? And then you start defining the requirement for a product. Yeah, so the nature of the role, as I initially mentioned, so I started from a entry level PMM who was responsible for writing down a blog or creating a
Wow.
presentation, to a person who is now responsible for doing some planning level activities, going through market launches and all that, to a PMM who is actually working at a strategy level, figuring out whether there is a business opportunity, whether you should be launching a new territory and things like that. So those are the things which kind of vary over time, like the nature of the role, the type of responsibility. As you become a lot more mature, you kind of start maturing from a basic execution level person to a planning to a strategy level within the organization.
So yeah, listening to you, there is a bit of research, product launch. Yeah, product launch is coming with different other things. A bit of sales and enablement, content in the early stages. Now it is more of a strategy. Um, what I could see is it differs from organization to organization, right? The research part
Yes.
you early said. If you look at my organization, the organization I work at, we have a limited product marketing team. So all the research part of the things predominantly done by the product manager, and the
Mhm.
rest is carried by the product marketing manager. So that's how it works, right? Content, I believe there are specialized writers. So PMMs will take from the specialized writers, right? And also product launches. It can be a physical event also. It can be email to existing customers or the prospects, that where you take help from the email marketers inside the company who are specialized in that. And
Right.
yeah, I could see a lot of overlap happening here between product managers, sales, marketeers. It was interesting.
Yes.
Yep.
And I
What
think
about sales?
even, yeah, so even today, for example, I would sit down and work on an email campaign where I literally give email copies to either the agency we are working with or actually, good point. You brought up sales enablement. So let me give you an example of what sales enablement typically is. And I'll give you 2 examples of how I've seen sales enablement in different parts of the organization. So back in Akamai, we used to have a model where we did quarterly sales enablement for the global teams. So we had one instance for the Americas, one instance for EMEA, one instance for APAC. So the product marketing person for that particular vertical. So for example, I was part of media and entertainment. So I would typically talk about anything new within the portfolio. So if there is a feature launch which has happened, so what is that new feature? How should sales be selling it? I would talk about competition. I would talk about a few other things at a quarterly. So these would be like 60 to 90-minute sessions where we'll take them through a series of updates within the current business. So this was in Akamai. We used to follow a different model there. In Adobe, for example, what we do is we have a monthly cadence with the sales team. What we also do is we have this concept called sales plays. So every product or every portfolio has something called sales plays. So sales play is a way of helping the sales team aggregate a thought process around a particular product. It could be different use cases. So for example, let's say when we in my current product, the e-learning tool that I was talking about, learning manager, the learning manager as a product gets sold in three different use cases. So within our organization, you could either train your internal employees or you could also train your external customers or partners. So let's say automotive as an industry, right? So automotive will typically sell their vehicles either directly or they'll sell it through their partner networks, resellers or dealership networks and things like that, right? So you'll have to train your dealership networks on new features or new cars and how to sell it, so on and so forth. So these are like all external people. So what we do is we train our sales team by packaging the product for these specific use cases as well. So for them, we will create like specific collateral, which is for internal employee skilling. We'll create specific collateral for customer training, for partner training, right? And as part of these sales plays, we would typically create a series of collateral. It could be sales decks, it could be product brochures, it could be even email campaigns. So I was telling you about us creating email copies. So even till this day, we do sit down and create email copies for the sales team. These would be templates which they'll then eventually use for customizing whoever they are reaching out to. But at least we provide the basic framework to them. Like you said, it's a very elaborate function in the sense that PMMs do a lot in terms of working right in the middle of the organization. So we would, as I said, we work with the product teams, we work sometimes with the engineering teams directly as well. We work with the sales team, we work with some of these different marketing teams as well, demand generation teams, and sometimes with the strategy groups. So there are different strategy groups within the organization. So we'll work with them to help them define the strategy for certain verticals, how to penetrate certain verticals, and things like that.
Got it. Got it. If I could say there are two generalist roles in build and sell side. Build would be a product manager and selling side would be a PMO.
So there is a little bit of a nuance there. So PMMs don't really sell the product directly to the
Yeah,
customer.
they don't, but
We
okay, they
influence
don't
the
do it,
process.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
we will
yeah.
influence that process. So we'll
They'll
enable
enable
the
the
sales.
process. They will, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm.
The other part that you should also understand, when I say that product marketing does a lot, I think that's where the challenges lie as well. Because even with mature companies, product marketing is still an evolving function. Every company defines product marketing in its own way. Whether it's a large company like Adobe, whether it's a mid-tier company like an Akamai, or whether it's a startup, different companies define the responsibility for product marketing in their own way because it's a very versatile function. And that's why it's also probably one of the more abused functions in the industry. You literally can mold a product marketer to become anyone. You can, over a period of time, you can mold this person to become a salesperson. You can mold a product marketer to become a product manager. I've seen extreme cases where people have moved from product marketing to engineering leadership to pre-sales functions. So
Engineering
everything.
leaders
Yes,
leadership.
yes.
That
And
is, I'd say,
I've seen
okay.
vice versa ways as well, where so even in Adobe, for example, I've seen people from solution engineering or pre-sales
Okay.
also roll up into product marketing, as in they transition over into product marketing over a period of time. Now, here is another thing which you should understand. So, product marketing or a product marketer typically should have a good or a very good understanding of the industry segment. This is without doubt the most important or one of the most important skills a product marketer should have. So, for example, let's say if I say that I'm a product marketer in the video streaming industry, I should have a very good understanding of how that technology works. Because assume an event marketer is not really expected to know the ins and outs of how the technology works. It's not their responsibility. But a product marketer, definitely yes, because we have to be updated about literally everything, what new is happening in that space, what is competition doing. And when I say what is competition doing, it's not really like, it's not at a superficial level. You'll have to understand if they are launching a feature, what is that feature, how is it going to impact your business, how is it going to impact their business, so on and so forth. And so that's the reason why you'll see people who have spent a lot of time on the technology side in a particular vertical, they also move from certain functions into product marketing. Like the example I was giving, someone from pre-sales will come
Pre-sales.
into product marketing, a product manager coming into product marketing, even engineering kind of comes into product marketing if they want at some point of time, because it's literally, you have done a lot of internal work, you want to get more face time with customers or work on the GTM side of things, you kind of make that internal move. So all those examples do exist within the
Okay.
industry. Yeah.
So, what kind of work you do with the title of product marketing manager? I mean, if you primarily your work is 80% of content, you're sort of a content marketer. If you're doing 80% of event, you're sort of a event marketer. So that is how you are saying it is getting abused, right? Or is there anything more?
I think let me frame it into the tier structure, which I kind of explained. So, as a early
Please.
PMM, when you become a PMM in the first 2 or 3 years of your product marketing career, that's pretty close to content marketing because you are literally creating content. You're writing blogs, you're creating decks, you're creating copies for ads, so on and so forth. So it's that does have a very high overlap with content marketing. As you get to that second stage, which is where the planning kind of happens, you'll see you tend to do a lot of the work which a product manager does as well. So understanding the scope for the market, the opportunity size, who to sell it to, how to sell it to, what kind of features should be built. So I've actually sat down with product teams where we have defined what a product should be. Like what the scope of one particular feature or a product should be. Yeah, so you kind of pretty heavily influence the product roadmap or the development of the product, what features to be built, what features should go into the beta versus features should go into the alpha release, so on and so forth. So there somewhere in between, you kind of do a lot of the tasks which a product manager does. Yeah, then let's say once you become, or even in this middle level as a senior product marketing manager, you would also do a lot of the things which sales is responsible for. So for example, we do sit on sales calls, we do pitch the product on a sales call to a customer, trying to get them interested about the product or sign them up on a trial, so on and so forth. So it's either when you are in that middle layer, you can be an influencer on the product side, or you can be an influencer on the sales side as well. And then eventually, once you transition over to a principal PMM or let's say a director level PMMs, so they are actually responsible for the strategy creation. So there you will be more like driving the actual revenue for the BU. So many of the director PMMs will actually carry a revenue quota as well. They'll have a revenue number on their head that so much of the revenue should be influenced through product marketing. So we
Okay.
do carry certain numbers which are directly linked to the revenue. Again, this is a variable which will different companies will look at it from different perspectives. But again, a metric which can be or the director level PMMs could be responsible for direct revenue attribution.
Right. Okay. Got. Okay. Now we'll talk about how one can become a PM. Take me or anyone who is starting out, right? So how they can become a PM? What are the prerequisites? What skills they should have?
Good question. I think I would say there are two routes of approaching product marketing roles. One is the content route. So you like creating content. So that's a natural advantage for becoming a PMM. So I've seen, like I said, so some examples that you are a good writer, you write good content pieces. So that's an added advantage. You can become a, so that's one of the skills a product marketer should have. The other route that you can take is you are an industry expert in a certain domain. I have an expertise in video streaming as a domain. Yeah, I worked in the engineering team. I worked as a product manager. I worked in that segment for X number of years. I understand the customer mindset. I know what customers need, what pain points they have, what are the issues, what are the gaps in the market, so on and so forth. So another skill set. So it's it's a two-sided approach. So you become a PMM by having a skill set to create content, which is the bottom-up approach, or you have the top down approach where you have an expertise in a certain industry and you kind of have been in that industry for a while, either in the product function, engineering function, sales function, and you want to transition into product marketing because, as I said, product marketing is that multi-dimensional functionality. I would say certain things are helpful. Having a analytical mindset is helpful because you'll have to do a lot of reading and understanding of the segment eventually as part of the role. Having that as a skill set helps. So if someone comes and tells me that Sandeep, you have to go and do a research on this particular segment, you have to go do a research on delivery networks, go do a research on what Zomato is doing today, and come back with a recommendation of how can Zomato increase their delivery time by 5%. I would need to understand that segment, look at what is happening, what is the scope for optimization, so on and so forth. So that would require qualitative analysis, that would require quantitative analysis, that would require talking to customers. So a lot of what PMMs also do is
Talking to
talking
delivery
to,
partners and all the logistics partners. Yeah.
yes. So yeah, whoever the stakeholder is. So in an
Yeah.
enterprise world, it could be an end customer. I talk to them. I see that over a period of, see. So let me give you an example. So when I talk about research, at least again going back to my world, which is the enterprise tech world. So you'll see in the enterprise tech world, ideally gathering knowledge happens in three different ways. You go do your own research, which is where you'll go on the public internet, you'll use some of these AI tools to do some research for you. So I go sit on ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT that can you create a report for me on this, on whatever the problem statement is, right? So that's one way of gathering information. The other way of gathering information is there are these analyst firms. You'll go talk to an IDC or Gartner and Forrester. So these guys have information on what is happening within certain industry segments. So they'll typically do research on things which are happening today. They'll also do research on what are the forecast and trends for the future. So if you have to understand what the future looks like in a particular segment, you'll typically talk to the analyst firms. The third way of gathering information is going and talking to real world customers or prospects. You go do interviews with your existing customers, or you go do some conversations with prospects and help and understand what their current problems are. What are they trying to solve for? Will they pay money for something which I'm trying to build? If the answer is yes, you know that, yeah, probably there is an opportunity there. So over a period of time, let's say if I've conducted 25, I'll give you an example. So we were talking to a set of video streaming customers a couple of years back. You'll see Netflix almost a year and a half back became very popular where they said that we'll not let you share passwords. Yeah, so if you're sharing your passwords, we'll block your account or you're not allowed to do that. Disney followed suit. A couple of other companies also tried to do certain, at least in the US market, this happened a lot. So Netflix was all over the news that you can't really share passwords. So when we went and when we
Is
talked
that
to,
implemented right, or it's still there are loopholes?
they have their own policies of doing that. We can't say that it's a right or a wrong implementation. It's an implementation which they have done, and it's happening everywhere. Like it's implemented in India. I know that you can't really, the moment you share your user ID and password with people in different parts of, so they allow it within your household as long as you are sharing your user ID and password within the same household, either with your family members, at least people who are living in the same household. It's all fine, but if you do this sharing with people outside, with your friends in different parts of the country or in other countries or other regions, over a period of time, they'll send you a pop up that you can't really do that. So when we talk to a lot of customers here, trying to understand what is their opinion, we saw that it's a pretty mixed bag. because large customers like a Disney or a Netflix are okay doing that, but a mid-tier customer will not want to do it because you might infuriate end users, they'll churn and go away. So those are the kind of insights which you receive when you talk to customers and prospects, that what is their view? Will they pay you for something which you assume is a problem? So this is a skill set which a PMM should have. You should have the ability to or the analytical capability to do research, whether it's primary, secondary, analytical. So those kind of things are pretty handy skill sets to have.
Right. Right. Interesting. Okay. So you said three things. One is, uh, are you can you create content, either can be written or talking like this? Secondly, do you have expertise in any particular industry that can come with years of experience as a product manager or in any other role? I know how that works for engineers. That's a different case. Particularly kind of feel that most engineers are a little away from the customers. And thirdly, can you do research well? Do you have that analytical mindset to do the research and derive some uh,
Insights or
pointers out
trends
of
and
it,
things.
insights
Yeah.
out of it, right? To take the next step. Yep,
Yeah.
these are the skill sets someone needs to become a PM.
So I have a
Right.
friend of mine, he migrated from a consulting firm to a product marketing function because consultants would typically work with things like this. So they'll be on the forefront of what are the trends in a certain segment and what are customers doing. So a lot of product marketing, at least the research part of things or the go-to-market side of things, which I was explaining, has a decent overlap with what consulting does. So either tech consulting or industry consulting, a lot of those consultants also operate in similar shoes. When you were saying engineering, I've seen a lot of these solution architects become interested in PMM kind of roles after a while, because they have seen the intricacies of what kind of technical workflows customers use and how can you actually solve problems through technical workflow improvisations over time, which is not necessarily a skill set which a PMM should definitely have, but it helps if you can understand the technical intricacies of how the backend works or how supply chains work in a different case. So, for example, in logistics, in that Zomato use case that we were talking about, if I understand the logistics well and very well, I might be able to make a recommendation on how that 5% improvement can be done in delivery times. Yeah, so those are things which would be helpful as a skill set.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. We'll quickly talk about how PMM interviews work. Like I said, who want to enter, these are the skills, and how their interview experience will be.
So ideally, it would be few things. I would typically measure a person on three different parameters. One is some kind of an understanding of the industry, because again, this is not the first thing which I'll measure the person on. Okay, let me actually take a step back. Depending on where you are hiring the person, if it's an entry level PMM, the industry alignment is not really that important. You can coach a person on the industry knowledge if it's an entry level PMM, because the person would ideally be required to. Sorry, you were saying
Yeah,
something?
sorry. Okay, yeah. I was about to ask this. When I started my product design tool, got like multiple product offers came. Right, I
Mm-hmm.
was talking to one of my friend. He had some marketing team, but
Mm-hmm.
was asking him, dude, can I take a look at it? Can I try the product role? He said, see, product is something very general. Don't go for it. At least do development design for 2 years, then you know at least one part of the building, right? So nobody
Mm-hmm.
can easily, I mean, you can understand the building process a bit instead of directly go and build, right? And that is
Sure.
also something I hear from multiple senior product managers, because they're seeing this young entry level grads coming and
Mm-hmm.
becoming a product manager directly, and they don't really understand the product building side of things. So I think I can relate a lot with product management since I'm in the building side of things.
Yeah.
Product marketing is a bit of, like you said, industry expertise or expertise is needed, and the marketing expertise, right?
Yeah.
Anyone who enters, I think they need to either start with some other role or content. This is what I feel. But yeah, please go ahead.
No, I think you're right. See, mostly, at least in India, if you look at, so India as a territory or region is still relatively new when it comes to product marketing. You'll not really see a lot of companies have a very well defined product marketing function. A lot of companies have started having at least teams which are responsible for product marketing, but still not very mature. So that maturity part is what you are kind of referring to, because like I mentioned, product marketing does a lot of things. So it tends to sway in different directions depending on what organization is trying to achieve what out of it. Yeah. Now, like I explained, if you look at a person who needs to get into product marketing, depending on where exactly the person is trying to get in, if you are a entry level PMM, you don't really need to have a lot of skills with respect to the industry side of things, like the technical knowledge or the customer pain points. You can learn that over time. But you should at least know basic requirements of product marketing at that entry level. So let's say if I get a person in, I ask him to create a sales deck for me. The person has no clue in terms of what to do and how to create a sales deck. Basics of it, like how to create a slide, how to write a basic copy of a sales pitch and things like that. That would be
Sandeep,
a
why
difficult
don't
part.
companies
Yeah.
believe in salespeople to create a deck? Why are they relying on PMMs to do that?
See, couple of things. One is there is a efficiency gap. The more time and effort you would want the sales team to spend on creating something, the poorer the efficiency of the sales team should would be. Ideally, sales is required to run. You have
Right.
to literally hit the ground running from day zero. If you ask the salesperson to sit down and create a deck for every goddamn meeting, your process will fail eventually. The other thing is, sales is not really equipped most of the times in terms of many things. So they'll not really have updates on what new features are coming. They'll not really be very updated on each and every trend. They'll not really have the best of skills to create those sales decks itself. Good sales people actually create very good decks, high impactful decks, but not everyone does that. So depending on again the type of salespeople, the type of organization, we have seen a lot of salespeople create their own decks and take it to the market. But at least the basic bare bone of sales decks are created by the marketing teams and specifically
Right.
by the product marketing teams. Yeah. Um, to 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 go back to your question, entry level not required. Mid level, the moment we start looking at people who are coming in as a senior product marketing or a principal product marketing person, we would expect that person to at least have two different type of skills. They should have operated in product marketing for a few years, because kind of getting a person in that middle layer without having any exposure of product marketing, you will set up that person for failure. Not really your function, but that person for failure. That person should have some understanding of what the function is expected to do, because you'll literally get pulled in every different direction. So you should be prepared to do that. You should have done that at least for a couple of years in some other organization, or at least you should have an understanding of what product marketing does. It's good to have the industry knowledge. If we are hiring someone in a senior product marketing role or a principal role, we would ideally want that person to come in with some kind of an understanding of that industry and segment and customer mindset, customer problems. It really helps. Anything above that, director PMMs or even a principal PMM and director PMM, it's very important to have that grasp on the function or a grasp on the industry. At least at a director level, we have seen or we see or both options get explored. We have seen a lot of tenured director level PMMs also move either internally within the organization, or if we are making an external offer, people come in with a good PMM team management experience because they bring in the functional expertise of managing a team of PMMs. Or what we have also seen is people who are like very deep in the industry. They are thought leaders. They have been in that industry for 15 years. You just need to tell them that, see, you are responsible for managing the product marketing function. I'll give you 5 resources. You go ahead and manage the team. So if they have good people management skills, they don't really need to acquire the industry skills. So again, to summarize the response, it depends on where exactly the hiring is happening. If it's happening at a junior level, you look at a different set of skills. If it's happening at a senior level, the type of requirements would be different.
Right. Got it. Okay, one final question before we wrap this up. I asked a same question to the product managers I spoke with. Who PMM should report to a product leader or a marketing leader?
Okay. That's a tough one.
Yeah,
You kind of answered the question. I literally across my career, I've seen both models operate. I've seen product marketing kind of report into the marketing vertical, and I've seen a product marketing report into the product manager. I used to report into a director of products till 6 months back, but currently I'm reporting into a director of product marketing. So literally in my span within Adobe itself, I've seen both the models operate. So
right.
my answer to that is I think it depends on two things. One is if you are operating in a smaller organization, it's better to have a vertical marketing function and have product marketing report into the marketing function, because the advantage of that model is you are working in unison with the marketing leader, who is also responsible for demand, who is also responsible for brand awareness, who is also responsible for product marketing. So you have a better chance of influencing the marketing process there. Because product, more often than not, in these smaller organizations, is more often than not self sufficient in terms of what has to be built. At least in the initial few years, they are pretty clear on what has to be built. And then obviously, dotted line structures are possible. In larger organization, it becomes a lot more difficult to have a vertical marketing function because the information doesn't really flow well vertically within large organizations. So
True.
in large organizations, their structuring itself will be more matrix in nature. And if it's a matrix structure, it's better to have a product marketing function report into the product team, because your biggest stakeholder there will be the product team.
Right.
Your core
Interesting
response.
take.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I heard a totally different opinion from the product manager I spoke to, right? She said that in a smaller organization who are maybe in their 1 to 10 or maybe above that also, Adobe is like way beyond, right? Okay, taking a smaller organization example, uh, product launches are very quick, happens in a faster pace. So product marketers should be aligned with the product team to get to know what's happening so that they can do all their things ready. They can do the product launches and stuff. When it comes to bigger organization where marketing, because there is a lot of noise, so product marketing should be aligned and are working under the marketing leader so that they can do marketing well. Yep, that's what I heard. But whatever you said also kind of right. Yeah, of course it varies from organization to organization,
It actually does
leader to
vary.
leader. Yeah.
And then again, see, depending on what is more important during a particular time frame, also defines the structure. So let's say if your business is mostly dependent on new feature launches or new product launches, so then it makes sense to have an alignment closer to the product, like the example that you're giving. So not every large organization will again have like very frequent feature launches, right? It could be a very established product which I don't really want to touch too much. So in that case, product marketing is better off having an independent existence where you are doing the more usual things, like working with the sales team, helping them create deals, so on and so forth, rather than working with the product team. But if within that same organization, you are part of a business which has more rapid product launches, right? So there you'll have to get aligned better with the product team. So it's also the motion which is important. Like the product marketing is responsible more for product launches, or is it responsible more for the go to market side? So
God. Uh,
I'll give you a very different example. Again, Adobe large organization, right? So we have industry groups. So there is a group which is specializing in healthcare as a vertical. So that group has a person who is a product marketing person. The group doesn't really have product managers. It doesn't really have salespeople. It's a group of strategy people. but they have a product marketeer because the product marketeer does add a lot of value there with respect to all of what I explained, doing some research,
Yeah.
figuring out what customers need, so on and so forth. So no product alignment, no sales alignment, no vertical
Got
alignment. It's a strategy group which sits within the organization somewhere.
it.
Depending on the need of the organization, the structure could vary.
So which one you did, like reporting to a product or marketing leader?
So that's what I used to report into. So back in Akamai, we used to have a vertical product marketing function. So product marketeers would report into the director of product marketing for their individual verticals. So for video and video tech, we had
But
one
who he
director of
reports
product.
to? The director of.
So the director reports to the VP of product marketing. So the VP of product marketing, back then I'm talking about like probably 6, 7 years back. So the VP of product marketing had all the different vertical product marketing directors reporting into him. So we had like 4 different verticals back then.
I was asking about who the VP reported to.
So the VP would report to the CMO.
CM. Yeah.
The
Okay. CMO
CMO
takes
would be
care of product, all content, and different verticals of marketing.
yes.
Right?
So
Okay.
CMO would be responsible for brand marketing, demand, events, and
Yeah.
product marketing. But
Got.
in Adobe, for example, the structure is entirely different. We don't have vertical structures here. So here
Right.
the reporting structure is all so the product groups have their director of marketing. So the director of marketing manages everything for that particular product, demand for that particular product, brand awareness for that particular product, social media marketing, and product marketing. So all the director of marketings report to a senior director of marketing. So the senior director of marketing is responsible for all the product lines. And the senior director of product marketing reports to the VP of the BU. The
Okay.
VP of
Okay.
the BU has sales reporting into him, has product reporting into him, has engineering reporting into him, has
Got it.
marketing reporting. So that's how the matrix kind of gets created in large organization. By the
Right.
time you reach a VP or an SVP, you'll see most of the functional leaders will report into the VP or the SVP.
What's his background? I think we are going little away from the expected things. But what's his background? He's handling the whole. He is kind of a CEO there, right? Yeah. What was he doing before that?
Mostly business leaders. So mostly people at VP and SVP levels will mostly have so I would say they would have two different types of background. Either they'll have come from a building career, like you were saying, they would have built a business somewhere, or they would have been associated with revenue generation in some capacity. So they'll come from the sales side of the world, or they'll come from the product building or engineering side of the world as well.
Right.
Actually, if you look at Adobe, the CEO of Adobe, Shantanu Narayan, comes from a product marketing background. So he started within Adobe as a product marketeer. So even those transitions have been there. Satya Nadella is a product marketeer. He started in the product marketing function. So we have seen product marketeers, like I said, it's a multifaceted function. Over time, product marketing people also go into different functions. So we go, as in a product marketing person can go into products, or the person can also go to the sales side.
Sales.
Yeah,
Yep. With that, I'll finish this episode. Great talking to you, Sandeep. Great insights. Thank you so much.
wonderful. Thanks, Sudarshan. Have a good one.